Well, hello again. It's Mark here with It's All About Racing. Thanks for tuning in. In this episode, guys, we're going to take a look at two Audi R18s. The number 2 car is an Audi R18 TDI in 143 scale from Spark models. The number 1 car on the right is an Audi R18 e-tron Quattro from IXO models. And the idea of today's comparison is to look at both models, to look at their casting, their scaling, their fit, finish, decaling, and detail work, and try to determine how the cars compare to one another. Now, the number 2 car from Spark was probably going to run you, my day would get anywhere from $80 to $100. The number 1 car, I know exactly how much I paid for because I remember picking it up at a racetrack. I paid $50 for it, so it's about half the price of the other. And I'm going to tell you this right up front, guys. I've done a lot of comparison with Sparks to IXOs. I have never taken either car off their bases in the past. However, I did so for this model because it was fairly easy. Both only used one screw. And it's really easy when you've got them side by side to see how they fit, particularly in regards to scale. Now, one model is a 2011 model. That is the Spark number 2 car. The other car is a 2012 model from IXO. Now, I'll tell you this right up front. Both cars are really, really good models and spectacular examples. And both cars are really, really close. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. This is the closest comparison I think I've ever had of any IXO to a Spark model that I've had in the past. Now, the Spark model is just a tiny bit better and a couple very minor things, something you would probably not even notice at all. But we'll take a look at all of that. Now, first of all, looking at scaling, how close do they come to being 143 scale? And I've got to tell you, I really don't know how to measure that, to be honest with you folks. I know there are some people out there that are much smarter than I that have done this on the past, but I've got to tell you, they all look really, really close here. Now, I've had some IXO Porsche 911s that seem to be larger than their Spark counterparts. But in this particular case, I can't say that that is the case. They are very, very, very close. Now, here's a look at both models head on. And we'll take a look at them literally side by side from front to tail, and they look really, really, really close. Now, the e-tron car on the right, the IXO model, the cabin seems set back a little bit further than that of the Quattro, but it's really hard to say, who's right or wrong in that. I can tell you from a detail perspective, if you take a look at the nose of the cars, which we'll do first, they're really, 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 they're just really good. They look equally as well detailed. The headlights, I think, on both cars are exceptionally done and look very, very sharp, both from Spark and from IXO. The decal work and the paint finish is quite spectacular. In fact, I actually like the paint finish on the IXO more than I do the Spark, just because the way they blend white and red and silver. But that's just a personal preference. If you take a look at the hubs for the windshield washers, it's a little bit more exaggerated on the IXO model, but that is accurate to what the cars look like. I have seen them both. The other thing that you have to do with are the antennas and the pitot tubes, and you really have just the antennas on the Spark model. You do have the pitot tube on the the Spark model has the pitot tube here as well as an antenna. This just has the antennas, but that is exactly how they are, how they look like. The windshield washers look good. As far as the interior of the cars and the cabins, both windows are tinted. It's almost impossible to see inside. So, I'd say they're even there because I really couldn't tell you which interior is better than the other. Okay, here's a look at both cars nose to tail. Both are very, very sharp. Now, the one area where I do give the Spark slight edge, and that is usually almost always the case with Spark, are the wheels. The wheels just seem to be a little bit better done on the Spark, and we're actually looking at the IXO right now, simply because you can usually see the rotor and the brake caliper a little bit better on Spark models than you do IXO. But guys, I got to tell you, in every other regard, these cars are really, really close. The antennas are nicely done. They're fine. They're thin on the Spark on the left, as well as the IXO on the right. Now, some of you might say, well, look at that huge pitot tube on the top of it that you see there. Guys, I got to tell you, that's exactly what it looks like on the real car. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. It's not overdone. The fact is, IXO did a really, really nice job with that. All other aspects of the detail work, I think, are exceptional with both cars. One thing I can tell you that, again, I'll just give a slight edge to the Spark on, and this is almost impossible to see with any camera, had to do with these little tiny door hatches that you have on both models. On the Spark model, those hatches are actually individually pieced on there. You can tell that by the texture and literally by touching it, which I refrain from doing, but that is not the case on the IXO, and I mean, it's almost impossible to notice the difference with either one. I mean, it's that close. Both cars, I think, look really sharp. And if you take a look at them nose to tail, I'd say in regards to scale and casting, excellent job on both models. Now, it's funny, as I move these around, the Spark model over here on the left is a resin model, and the IXO is a die cast, and it's substantially lighter. Now, here you're looking at the tail end of both cars. And guys, very, very sharp, nicely done. Another thing that's almost impossible to see, particularly with this guy, and the fine details, are the carbon fiber trim. Usually that is non-existent on IXO models. That is not the case with this Audi. The carbon fiber trim is very, very good. Tail hooks look good. The rear end, both cars, just very, very nicely done, very sharp. The wings looks excellent. They're slightly different in design and color, but they look really, really good. We roll this around, we'll take a look at a top view of both down. As you can see, they are just really, really, really close in every regard. They both look really, really nice. I mean, beautiful artwork. And, give that credit to Audi, but give it also to the folks at IXO and Spark for recreating as well as they do. Well, guys, what do you think? My take is both models are absolutely excellent representations. I give Spark just a very, very slight edge for the two reasons that I told you, having to do with the wheel detail as well as the latches on the cabin doors. Otherwise, folks, great cars. Casting looks good. Scaling looks good. Fit and finish, excellent. Another issue I usually have with almost all IXO models have to do with decal, size, placement, and just the finish in general, and they have done an absolutely superb job with this one. You almost always get that with Spark, almost always. Other quality control issues usually are more apparent on Spark models. There are none on this, guys, and I have eyeballed them from every angle, every detail. Very nicely done. Well, folks, that ropes it up. Hope you've enjoyed this. I know it's taken a while to get through this, but these are two really good models, and when I reviewed both of them individually, I gave them high numbers. But I'm sitting here watching actually some of the racing back in 2013, and look at these models, and I usually pull them out if I'm reviewing a race, and I put them on the desk in front of me, and I haven't done a comparison of these two cars, and because there was only one screw I had to take them off the bases, which I almost never do. And even though both cars have very fragile pieces, particularly to do with the antennas and the mirrors, it wasn't too hard to do so. Also, generally don't like to touch them. But here you have it. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time, guys.